It is day 282 of the second Trump administration, and today we now have dozens of states taking the administration to court for refusing to fund food stamps for the next month. Funding for SNAP benefits is set to run out on Saturday, 3 days from now, because of the shutdown. Of course, the Trump administration could use emergency money to keep it going. Today, on a call with his caucus, Speaker Mike Johnson made it clear that he has no plans for a standalone bill that would fund SNAP. That is according to Politico. Johnson encouraged Republicans to stay unified as more Americans are feeling the real pain from the shutdown.
Have fallen completely flat. They think that by not voting on this stuff, it will continue to put more pressure on Democrats to fold, to reopen the government. And so it looks like this stalemate's going to go on for at least a little bit longer, and with no relief in sight for federal workers, for troop pay, unless the administration does something of moving money around, and SNAP benefits, which Democrats insist is actually required by law for the administration to pay SNAP benefits, even if the government is shut.
It's day 282 of Trump's second term, and the country is sliding into a crisis that feels unlike anything we've seen in years. Millions of Americans are bracing for impact because funding for food assistance runs out in just 3 days. Dozens of states have already launched lawsuits against the administration, accusing them of refusing to fund the next round of SNAP benefits as the shutdown pushes deeper into month after month of dysfunction. Democrats insist the law requires the payments to go out regardless of a shutdown, but the Trump administration is refusing to act, even though emergency funds could keep families afloat. Speaker Mike Johnson, on a private call with his caucus, made it painfully clear that there would be no standalone bill to keep SNAP alive. He told Republicans to stay unified and hold the line, believing that starving out any bipartisan action would force Democrats to crack. Meanwhile, federal workers, military families, and some of the poorest households in the country are running out of time, money, and patience. But even this growing crisis wasn't the only moment capturing attention. Something else happened. Something so bizarre that people didn't know whether to laugh, panic, or question what's really going on inside the White House. While the shutdown hammered families at home, Trump was thousands of miles away in Asia, attending a diplomatic summit where every word is supposed to be carefully measured. Leaders across the region gathered to discuss trade, military cooperation, and the delicate political balance that shapes the Pacific. But just as meetings were underway, Trump logged on to Truth Social and fired off two strange words that instantly became one of the most talked about moments of his entire trip. South Air Dolbeck. No mention of South Korea, no explanation. Just a scrambled pair of words followed by 4 Ds at the end, and then the post vanished as quickly as it appeared. But the internet never forgets. Screenshots spread like wildfire, memes erupted across every platform, and within hours, the diplomatic mission was overshadowed by this indecipherable blunder that no one could make sense of. Rumors online started swirling immediately. Some people said it was just a typo. Others speculated he fell asleep on his phone. A few suggested something deeper might be happening: exhaustion, stress, or cognitive strain. None of that could be confirmed, of course, but the fact that so many people were asking those questions showed how big the impact was. And the fallout didn't stop there, because leaders back in Washington were already dealing with an entirely separate storm. Inside Congress, Republican lawmakers were scrambling to explain why the House suddenly decided to resume session after weeks of delays. One reason, according to several insiders, was that Speaker Johnson was stalling on seating the newly elected Democrat from Arizona. If that member were sworn in, Democrats would finally have the votes needed to force the release of the Epstein files, a move that many in the GOP desperately want to avoid. Instead of dealing with that head-on, the House became consumed with an autopen investigation that critics say is nothing more than a distraction. Even veteran Republicans are rolling their eyes at the idea of launching hearings over a signature machine. They know what's really at stake. But while leadership tries to juggle these political fires, the Senate is beginning to break away in a way that would have been unthinkable just a year ago. 4 Republican senators, people who usually stand firmly with Trump, voted against his tariff escalation targeting Canada. That move sent shockwaves through the party. These senators didn't suddenly become moderates. They're reading the landscape and realizing that Trump's approach is putting them in an impossible position. Ted Cruz, one of his most loyal defenders during past scandals, has now openly criticized his attacks on the media and expressed concerns about his communication habits. Rand Paul, who often challenges executive power, pushed even further, questioning Trump's judgment and raising alarms about the direction he's dragging the party. When voices like these start breaking away, it signals something bigger than policy disagreements. It signals unease, uncertainty, a fear that they're tying themselves to someone whose unpredictability could end their political careers. Because defending Trump's latest string of misfires isn't just hard, it's becoming embarrassing. Republican strategists are quietly panicking about the impact these gaffes are having on voters, especially independents. And that concern isn't just hypothetical. A YouGov poll taken the day after the South Air Dolbeck incident showed more than 70% of Americans reacting negatively. That includes Democrats, of course, but the real danger is independents, the swing voters who decide razor-thin elections. Many of them reported being deeply concerned or uneasy about what the typo might represent. And once voters begin to question a candidate's mental sharpness, every slip suddenly looks like proof of decline. The Lincoln Project immediately seized the moment, circulating the screenshots with commentary about cognitive tests and MRI scans, not claiming that these things happened, but pointing out that such questions are now unavoidable. Their messaging hit a nerve because it used the exact same tactics Republicans deployed against Biden in past election cycles. Now the boomerang is flying back in their direction. Inside the GOP, frustration is building. Members of Congress are tired of being asked to defend strange posts, awkward statements, and unpredictable tirades. They rely on Trump's base to survive primaries. But once they get to the general election, they need suburban moderates. And those voters aren't amused by chaotic late-night posts or jumbled foreign policy remarks. Republicans are stuck trying to walk a political tightrope, criticize Trump enough to reassure swing voters while supporting him enough to avoid alienating his supporters. It's a balancing act that's nearly impossible to pull off, and the South Air moment made it even harder. Party strategists are just as exhausted. They try to craft disciplined messaging, plan coordinated attacks, and shape coherent narratives. But it's impossible to stay on script when the president himself derails the conversation every few days with a new controversy. His communication style has always been unconventional, but lately, the pattern feels more unstable. You can't build a long-term strategy when everything gets overshadowed by whatever he posts that morning. And looming over all of it is Trump's age. He's 79 now. Republicans spent years hammering Biden over verbal slips, confused moments, or slow responses. They made cognitive fitness a central campaign theme. Now those same arguments are being leveled back at Trump, and the party has no clean rebuttal. They set the benchmark, and now they're trapped by it. The media jumped all over the South Air moment too. Cable news devoted entire segments to dissecting the meaning behind the two-word post, with commentators comparing it to past public missteps. Late-night comedians turned it into a viral bit. And once something becomes a late-night joke, it enters a cultural space that lingers much longer than a news cycle. That's how narratives form. Slowly at first, then all at once. Once voters start to see Trump as someone who might not be fully in command, every stumble reinforces that belief. It becomes a feedback loop that's nearly impossible to break. Meanwhile, Republicans know the midterms are coming in 2026, and the political stakes couldn't be higher. The party is showing real fractures. Senate Republicans are voting against him. Senior figures are speaking out. House Republicans are wavering. A divided party rarely wins elections, and Democrats are watching the chaos unfold with growing optimism. A party that can't unify, can't message, and can't control its leader becomes easy to defeat. And that's exactly why Democrats are preparing to weaponize the South Air moment for maximum effect. Opposition researchers have already begun assembling video montages of Trump's verbal missteps, slurred responses, and rambling speeches. They're turning every questionable moment into ammunition. The narrative is simple. If he can't manage a social media post without causing an international spectacle, how can he manage the presidency? That message hits hard because it taps into a quiet fear among voters. Is he losing a step? Is the pressure getting to him? Is age finally catching up? No one can answer those questions definitively, but the fact that they're being asked is a political threat on its own. Republicans are stuck with a brutal dilemma. If they defend Trump, they risk being tied to every misstep he makes. If they criticize him, they face backlash from his loyal base. Either way, cracks are forming. Some Republicans are quietly floating the idea that the party might need a new face. Someone younger, more disciplined, and less unpredictable. But they're afraid to say it publicly. Trump still dominates primaries. He still commands loyalty from millions. And he still punishes anyone who crosses him. So the party remains frozen, pulled between fear of the base and fear of losing the general electorate. The question now is whether Trump can change. Based on his history, the answer is almost certainly no. This is who he is. He speaks off the cuff, he posts impulsively, he rejects handlers, he courts chaos. And as long as that continues, Republicans will find themselves bracing every time he picks up his phone. They're hoping he can go a week without an embarrassing blunder. They're hoping he doesn't ignite another international spectacle. They're hoping he doesn't hand Democrats another gift in an election year. But hoping is not a political strategy. And if the past decade has taught us anything, it's that more slip-ups are inevitable. So here we are, watching a party inch closer to a breaking point. Trump is charging forward with rallies, speeches, and online posts. The GOP is holding its breath, waiting for the next moment that might force them to choose between loyalty and survival. Democrats are sharpening their attacks. Independents are raising eyebrows. And the country is left wondering whether this latest controversy is just another messy moment, or the start of a deeper unraveling. Because once voters connect a leader with instability, it's nearly impossible to change their minds. And the South Air incident isn't fading. If anything, it's becoming the symbol of a much bigger issue. A presidency showing signs of strain, a party fracturing under the weight of its own contradictions, and a nation preparing for political battles that feel more uncertain than ever. If you enjoyed this deep dive and want to stay ahead of the next major political twist, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss what's coming next. This story is only getting started, and you're not going to want to miss where it goes from here.